Since 1987, this is where it gets good, Liam has worked as an accountant, a roof tiler, a fencer. Fencer is toch schermer, toch? LA tour bus driver, actor, and jackhammerer before throwing himself into the deep, liberating waters of the startup, commencing in 1995, setting up distribution channels for companies which to date include Informix, Oracle, Red Hat, and Cisco systems. We know at least one of those. In 2002, he founded Brewtopia Limited, a progeny of a unique marketing exercise. An initial online member base of 130 friends and friends of friends helped create a virtual beer. In return for share allocations in the company and the promise of free booze. Which one would have worked better? Share allocations, free booze. This group determined everything from the taste right down to the label. Liam and his small team of Brewtopia were creating a beer made and owned by the people. Since the initial launch of Blowfly in November 2002, that initial membership has continued to swell, and Brewtopia now boasts a loyal band of over 40,000 members in 47 countries. This is about a virtual beer and a real company with virtual beer, real beer, back to front and upside down. This is Liam Mulhall of Brewtopia.
Thank you. It's always good to get applause up front. It's much better than getting blunt objects thrown at you at the end, which has happened. First of all, thank you for welcoming me. I love this country. I love Holland. The Australians and the Dutch have a lot in common, apart from access to legalised drugs. But we're very much similar in culture, very creative sort of people, intuitive and laid back, I think, easygoing, and which is why I think these kind of things will work. I often think that Australians could very well have solved heart disease and diabetes by now. And I can see two scientists sat there after they've found the cure for heart disease saying, well, we've done that now. Of course, we've got to do the paperwork, we've got to file the patents, we've got to talk to the bosses, we've got a bunch of testing going on for another couple of weeks, and it has gone 5 o'clock. Let's just go to the bar. So the point I'm trying to make is that something like open source and open business technologies that's worked so well for us in Australia could work and should work extremely good in countries and with companies that have a lot more rigid and ruthless efficiency, I suppose, than we have. So my whole thing is about making an open business profitable. But with that, beforehand, what I will give you... Welcome to Amateur Hour. It's not me, by the way, I'm professional, I do this for a living. I love that music. Why I did that? Why Amateur Hour? I got a feeling that the lunatics are now running the asylum. It's a little bit like that on the internet at the moment. My question is there any more room for professional editors, journalists, copywriters, musicians, filmmakers in the internet economy? When you look at wikis and blogs and mashups and aggregated content and YouTube and these sort of things, all this content has been created by essentially amateurs, people who are unpaid, that have no skin in the game, I suppose. They've got nothing in it other than their own passion for involvement. And it makes it very difficult for organisations out there at the moment to harness this energy. How do we do it? How do we make money out of it? How do we make it profitable? When the slash of someone's keyboard can turn a company around, for example, we can put out things like with on Wikipedia, for example, when Kenneth Lay died, right? Within 10 minutes, there was 3 different ways of how he actually died. It was a heart attack, then it was suicide, then it went back to being a heart attack again. So these things are out there all the time, and there's so much influence on the web, and there's so much anonymity that it makes it very difficult to harness. This cartoon here, I love it, was done in 1993 in the New Yorker. And of course it says, on the internet nobody knows you're a dog. And that is no more relevant than it is now. People can do and say anything, and it's about harnessing that energy and harnessing the power of the crowd, the wisdom of the crowd almost, and turning that into some sort of commercially viable opportunity. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we did with Brewtopia and how we did it, and how that may translate into other businesses, other industries. But first of all, before we do that, we've got to sort of step back. What is open source? What is open business? Now you'll notice that's a closed source bottle. I couldn't find an open one, so you'll just have to imagine. But at its very basic roots, and taking out the software side of things, we all know about open source software, but all it really is a recipe, a set of ingredients and how to make it. And someone who has come up with this recipe has put it out there into the world and said, listen, let's all help make this thing better. Let's try and evolve it into the best recipe we can. And you can use that recipe for whatever you like, right? But you can't sell that recipe to anyone else unless you make your own flavour, your own version of it. And that's essentially all really open source is. To me, it's very much a collective evolution, trying to make something very, very robust. If you look at where I suppose the heart and the beginning of open source software was Linux. Don't know how you say it over here, but for those of you who don't know the story, the basic facts are that a Finnish chap called Linus Torvalds was working on some Unix code, and it's an operating system backend, and he had all sorts of problems with it. There's a lot of different flavours of Unix, and there was a lot of bugs and issues with it, and he got jack of it, and he said, I'm just going to make my own operating system. He used Unix as its basis, but he essentially built an operating system. And what he did was he put it out there on a bulletin board. This is in the mid-90s. And he put it on a bulletin board and let all of his geeky mates know, I've just made this operating system. Come and have a look at it. Tell me what you think. If you think you can improve it, let me know, and let's sort of add to it and make it a nice little robust thing, because if I'm having problems, you're all having problems as well. So let's see if we can solve this in a collaborative sort of way. And that was really the start of it. Over the course of the next years, they had hundreds of thousands of developers working on this code. And it actually became, and he's now, Linux is the most popular operating system in the back office. In fact, most of the emails and things that you send now all run on this Linux operating system. It's developed into more than that, but what companies have done is they've taken that basic recipe, and a company called Red Hat was the first one that I know of that took this thing and tried to commercialise it. They said, well, you can have the operating system for free. You can have that. It costs you nothing. Right? If you want to buy it on a disc, you can pay $20. But you can have the operating system for nothing, and we will sell you all the services around it, and try and help your business become more profitable, more efficient, etc., etc. Red Hat, I was their second employee in Asia Pacific back in 1999, and I was tasked with selling $70 million a year worth of free software, which is not an easy thing to do. So after working that at a couple of years, this whole open source phenomenon and just watching where and why people got involved and where their emotional attachment was to this product. Why were they out there improving this operating system when there's really nothing in it for them other than ego and status? And it became that Linus there, who's still the head of this Linux organisation, he had about 13 or so lieutenants, I think, who would aggregate all this information coming in and say, that works, that works, that doesn't. And that's really how the thing evolved. But I happened to be working for Red Hat, and I wasn't real happy with being involved in the IT industry. It was at that boom period there, just before the bust, and I decided to quit. I took a year off, and I wanted to start my own business. I actually wanted to buy a bar and had my own beer, put my own beer through it. But I had a problem. I didn't know how to make beer. I had no experience with making beer. I had no one knew about my company. I had no customers, and I had no idea what I was doing. So my challenge was, how do I get customers to demand a product that doesn't exist from a company they've never heard of? Now, don't ask me why I decided to continue going on with this, but it was really a marketing experiment. I just wanted to see whether it could be done, whether you could start a product from the ground up without any advertising, without any operations, I suppose. And I started thinking about this open source thing that I've been working with for a couple of years, and thinking, that the power of the people, the wisdom of the crowds, could this work outside of the software industry? No one had ever seen it. I did a bit of study and I couldn't find anyone that had done it. So I was just toying around with that, and I happened to be watching television, and a show called Big Brother was on, right, which originated here. And that got me, I was intrigued as to why people could sit in front of the television for 24 hours a day and watch 10, 12 people sit there and do nothing, yet get emotionally involved and attached with these people, so much so that they're on the front page of the newspaper and vote them out at the end of the week. I thought, this is pretty cool. Could you mesh that with this open source business and come up with some sort of open methodology to building a business? So that was my starting point. And I decided that, very basically, what I decided to do was build a website. Over the course of 13 weeks, 3 months, I was going to have, and the reason I came up with that was because that was how long Big Brother went for. I thought, someone spent a lot of money in researching that. 13 weeks sounds about right. So over 13 weeks we would vote and develop this product. And my methodology for doing it was this, very simple. This is 5-6 years ago when we started doing this. So we didn't have the technology that we have now. It was all done, it was like breaking rocks. It was tough. It was all with email. And I sent an email out to 130 of my friends, I suppose, that I had on in my Outlook calendar, and said, I'm going to build this beer. I've got no idea what I'm doing, but I reckon together we could all make it happen. Over the course of the next couple of months, I'm going to send you an email, and I want you to come onto the website, and I want you to vote on a question that I'm going to put up. And the question will be something about the beer. So the first one was, what sort of beer should we brew? Should it be a lager? Should it be an ale? There's always two answers. That's it, no more. The reason we had two is because majority had to rule. If you have more choices, the more choices you give people, they just go, But if you give them two, it's very easy for them to make a decision, a distinction. So we had a little control factor in there. So we had, you can pick the style of beer, the colour of the bottle, what strength alcohol we make it, what do we call the beer, what sort of label do we have. And unwittingly, what I was doing really was what a lot of these companies now are doing is getting this wisdom of the crowds, crowdsourcing, I suppose, and getting them an emotional involvement in the product, so that when it hit the shelves, they could say to their friends, "Hey, I helped make that. That was part of me." My other thing to tie it in there, which hadn't been done before, and actually at the time I had a few issues with the Australian Securities Investment Commission. I wanted to give away shares in the company. So every time you voted, you got a share in the company, right? Or you got a right to a share in the company. So over the course of that 13 weeks, voting, I said to the guys, I want you to do one other thing. I truly still believe I invented the refer a friend model, right? I hadn't seen anyone do it before. I said, I want you to let some friends know, right? And the more you know, the better, because every 4 friends that you invite who come on and vote as well, I'll give you another share in the company. So this was my marketing strategy. This was my whole business strategy. That was it. Didn't expect any of it to work. But at the end of the 13 weeks, we had an image of the product, of what it would look like. Okay, a lager in a brown bottle with such and such label on it. And we had about 12,000, 13,000 people who were involved, who had transacted with us to some level. Doesn't sound like a lot, but as I said, we didn't have the use of social networks that we have today. You know, it was one by one by one, and no one had heard of Brewtopia. So it was a slow old process. But in the end it worked well because it built a nice solid structure and a foundation. So at the end of this period of time I had to somehow or another find the beer. I'm not going to go into why, because that's not why we're here, but what happened was we ended up retailing this beer. We retailed it in liquor stores and in bars, and also direct over the web. We used the Dell model, I suppose. You can come on and create your own and buy the beer with us, and it's a little bit cheaper, and we'll ship it direct to you. But what happened was we had all these thousands of people out there who said, look, we like your beer, but we've got a special event coming up on the weekend, or I work for a big company and we've got an event, we've got something on, and we would like to have our own label, our own brand. And we've been to the big companies, the big breweries in Australia, and no one will do it for us. So we thought, okay, we've just done that with our own beer. We've just customised our own. How hard could it be to do it for someone else? And it all started with a guy who got a case of beer customised for his birthday, and he came back on the Monday after it and said, listen, that was terrific. He actually happened to be the creative director of the biggest advertising company in Australia. And he said, I want you to, can you do this en masse? Can you do a lot of these? And I said, yeah, we can. And he said, great, I've got a customer, Electrolux, Simpson, and they're celebrating 150 years of being in business. And we want to put a carton of beer in each fridge to all the retailers all around Australia. And no one will do it for us, will you do it? I said, yeah. How many do you want? He said, 10,000 cartons. Now at that point we'd sold maybe 1,000 cartons of beer. Yeah. So after I picked myself up off the floor, we did one very little thing. We've never advertised Brewtopia ever. Even today we've never done an advertisement. It's all been word of mouth. We've never had a sales team. We've never made a sales call. And we deal with the biggest companies in Australia and the world. We deal with ING, ABN AMRO, American Express, and you name it, we've done beer for them. I know we've done Yahoo beer for their 10th birthday. And all we did on the back of this thing was put the Brewtopia website saying, custom branded specialists. We were the specialists, no one else did it. And it went bananas. And we had people coming to us saying, we want you to customise our beer for us. And initially we were doing it all by hand. We built a little tool, and we put it on the website and said, listen, you have to customise your own beer. We can't do it. So here's a whole bunch of labels. You can do it yourself. And that just grew and grew and grew and became this massive thing that now 90% of all the product that goes through is customised beverages. Our people out there, our customers, and we have them in, as I said there, like 50 countries now. And there's, I don't know, we've probably got 150,000 transactional members on our database. None of them we've ever had to, we've ever actually physically gone and got, they've all come to us. 90% of our business is customising. That's not what we set out to do in business, but that's what we do now. We're assuming that the people, the crowd out there, the great unwashed, if you like, know what they're doing, and they can't get it from anyone else, so they're getting it from us. The other thing we did was a couple of years ago, we went to them all and we said, listen, you want us to start doing water and wine and chocolates and underpants and pet rocks and who knows what else, but we haven't got enough capital to do it. So we're thinking about listing the company. And I was talking to a couple of venture capitalists, and we deal with a lot of venture capitalists now in trying to raise money, and this is a lot of problems startups have. And this kind of thing is really for disruptive kind of businesses. They're not for established businesses to do. I wouldn't recommend it. But companies who are finding it tough to raise funds, we used our own database that we'd built. We went out to them and said, we're thinking about listing. Would you like us to do it? And we put the vote, 2 questions, yes or no. Yes ruled, so we said, okay, great. You guys are going to have to invest. So we said, how much are you willing to put in? And they came back, and within 2 days we had pledges for about $1.5 million, $2 million. So we thought, great, let's put a prospectus together and get it out there. And 6 weeks later, we were listed on the stock exchange. We're now a publicly traded company. But again, that was not what we were out there to do. It's just something that's just evolved from it. So with that as a basic blueprint, I suppose, of how this works, I'd like to take you down the path of building an open source company or an open business and some of the pitfalls that are involved in it, what works and what doesn't. Oh, I forgot about this slide. We did a beer for Microsoft a long time ago, and you'll see there it says, may cause system shutdown if you drink it. I figured, we did it, we took the piss out of them a little bit. We said, if you had a Microsoft XP beer, you wouldn't actually be able to own the beer, or the bottle, or know any of the ingredients that are actually inside. In fact, you couldn't own it. You could only license to drink that one particular bottle. You couldn't share it with a friend. And it would never taste like the free sampler they gave you at the bar, right? They found that amusing. Okay, why use open source? And that should actually be why would you adopt an open business methodology? Well, this isn't for all companies. This isn't for all products. It isn't for all businesses. I couldn't imagine someone like McDonald's or Microsoft, the ultimate closed source business. I couldn't imagine them doing it. But as I said, disruptive companies, disruptive organisations, this is powerful stuff if you can do it right. And there's plenty of examples as to people that are doing it now. You've got access to untold millions. Look at Wikipedia, right? This is now the online reference guide. It's written by amateurs, right? Yes, there are problems with it, but it's written by amateurs. It's huge. It's the first place of reference for anyone. Look at YouTube, MySpace, right? This is all aggregated content from the masses, right? If you can somehow work out how to harness that, man, powerful. You get that collaborative thought and action. It's not always right, but generally, people have thought and acted the same way since day dot. All right, you know in masses which way people are going to go. You know how they're going to act. Individually, you don't know, but as a group, you know if you say something or if you put something out there, what the majority of people are going to do. It's very, very powerful. Psychology. That's why psychologists are paid so much money. It also gives you, as we found, especially for startups, the holy grail of marketing, word of mouth. It doesn't cost you anything, but you get that trust factor, because it's not me spending $20 million on an advertising campaign to convince you to buy my beer. It's your best friend telling you, geez, you've got to try this stuff. I know the label looks a bit crap because it's got my face on it and, you know, ugly ass and everything else, and I've put terrible colours on it, but the beer's lovely and you've got to do it. And that's priceless. You can't get that. And that kind of marketing, that kind of advertising is supremely powerful if you've got the right story. And we'll talk about some of the steps to implementation there. We did a lot of things wrong. And I reckon we've come up with a pretty good model for companies who are looking at doing this kind of thing in a commercial sense outside of the software space. And so, as I mentioned there, it builds trust, and trust over time builds profits because people keep coming back. They trust you, provided you keep delivering on your experience and what you're promising. So what are the drawbacks? Look, there's millions of them. You could probably put them on 50 slides. But I boil it down to a couple. The first one is, and it may not be such an issue anymore, but the investment of time to actually evolve your product or your business, especially if you're starting from nothing, it takes time to get. You think it'll go bananas. I remember listening to Mr. Microsoft, not Bill Gates, was it Paul Allen? Yeah. And he said they thought Windows version 1 and version 2 were going to go bananas, would take over the world. And it wasn't until 3.1 that they actually started to get that traction, which was years later. So I think if that, for someone like Microsoft, for that to take time to evolve, it never goes as fast as you think it will. And we thought it was going to go like wildfire. You may get things that go fast. You may get things that spread like a virus, but like viruses, they don't leave scars. They don't leave lasting marks. You've got to keep hitting them over and over and over again. So it takes time, especially if you haven't got any credibility in the early days. And that's a turn-off for some companies. We live in a fast food environment. People want it now, yesterday. Let's make money. The lack of skills, I'll come back to that one. It's very important. Is the community big enough? Yes, we're dealing with worldwide 2 billion people, or however many there are in the world now. I don't know, I lost count. I lost count at 100 million people. But is the market big enough? Are you going to be able to entice enough people to get involved and convince them to help develop your product? Beer wasn't a problem. Beer is a very understandable product. It's ubiquitous. Everyone knows it. It's a topic of conversation. I don't think they're the kind of things that you need as elements to make it work. I couldn't see this happening with something like paper clips. Okay? So is the community big enough for that evolution, that collective thought to work? You also have destructive communities, people out there to bring you down. May not be such a big thing here, and I know it's not in America, but in Australia, no one likes to see you get ahead. Right? They cut you down. They call it the tall poppy syndrome, right? So as soon as you start to get ahead, people start to say things about you and write things, and once it's on the web, it's on the web. You can't get rid of it, right? So these kind of things happen. You've got to almost be like judo. You go with the force, and you make that force work with you. So when there's bad things written about you, or there's communities out there trying to bring you down, you've got to work with it. You be open and say, yeah, we stuffed up. And that's all part of being open. And it can work for you. So the whole destructive community thing, it can be a problem, but you can also make it work for you. The other thing is minimal control. It goes against everything MBAs are taught and everything you're taught in business school, is control over every aspect of your business, which you do need, but with regards to your product, I don't know, it's debatable. I look at it and think, if I'm going to spend, well, here's an example. On the flight over from Australia, I had a lot of time to kill, about 26 hours. And I happened to watch a show, I think it was called Starting Out, or Starting Up. And it was a couple of English guys who wanted to start a burger company. And the difference was they started opposite McDonald's. And the deal was that they were real burgers, right? There was none of this artificial stuff. They were going to be good for you, healthy, etc., etc., etc. They spent £250,000 in setting the business up, just the infrastructure of it, right? And doing what they thought people wanted. No one came. They sold, I don't know, about 100 burgers in the first 3 weeks. Nothing. They got it all wrong, right? The burgers were too expensive, right? They took too long to cook. People were waiting too long. Everything was wrong, right? They basically just burned £250,000. That's real money. So my thing is, why wouldn't you go out there and do something like what we did and say, hey, we're thinking about starting a burger company. We reckon the healthy burger thing would go well. Why don't you help us make it? Okay, here's what we're thinking. What about if we had a healthy burger, right, that had all these X, Y, and Z ingredients on it? Would you go for that? Yes. No. Right? It's probably going to take somewhere around 5 minutes to cook. Is that good, bad? What do we need to get it to? It's this collaborative involvement. That way when they started, now that might have taken them 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, who knows, but they would have saved the cash, right? So I believe the control factor, it can be argued both ways. You're better off knowing exactly what your customers are going to do and whether they're going to buy it. Can you sell it before you actually make it? That's the ultimate, I think. I'll go back to the lack of skills to evolve. I'm going to show you a couple of things. Part of the problem with this whole crowdsourcing, if you like, in this open community is that sometimes you're giving a voice to people who have nothing to say. But they'll say it anyway, or do it anyway. One of the things we did was we asked people to come and design our beer labels for us. And so we had creative designers and we had people who weren't creative designers do it. And this is a sample of some of the beer labels that they come up with. And that was serious, right? And you wouldn't buy a beer with any of that on it. It's terrible. But these are the things we had to do. Now we had to placate those people and say, look, that's very lovely. You've done a good job, but we're not going to use it. So sometimes you're giving a voice to people who have nothing to say, all right? And they have a lack of actual skills to do what you want to do and take your business where you want to take it to. So you've got to be very careful of how you control that aspect of it. Okay, here's some of the aspects of what you would need to, if you're going to do this, if you're mad and you were going to do this, what would you do? Well, first of all, like any business, it assumes there's a market there, right? And that you have some sort of operational efficiency to be able to produce what you want, whether it be a service or a tangible product. Okay, so that's number one. The second thing is it's got to be easily understood. If people can't go out there and in 3 sentences or 3 lines explain what it is you do and why you should be involved, then it ain't going to work. All right? Because they're telling your story. They've got to be able to enunciate that. You have to engage your advocates. Now, your advocates may be your current customers. If you're starting out last, you don't have any. So you've got to start from scratch. But you've got to somehow or another give them something. Right? The tools, something to go out there and help them evangelize you. Right? They've got to have a reason for it. And number 4 is the big important thing. You've got to build a community first. You've got to build a channel to market. You can't. And I've seen it, and I've seen it now in a couple of examples I'll give you in a minute. If you try and commercialise it straight away, without giving the foundation time to settle on your community, if you haven't given them time to trust you, to know that you're going to stick around for the long run, that your product's good, then it's not going to work. You've got to build the foundation of the community. It took us 18 months before we even turned a dime, before we sold them anything. And we still have people now, 5-6 years later, who bought their first case of beer from us. And I email all of them. Everyone who buys from us gets an automatic email saying, why did you buy? And how did you find out about us? And I still get people saying, oh no, I got the original email back in 2002, and I just wanted to see if you're still going to be around. $50. $50 carton of beer. So it's very important that you build the community properly and make sure it's a nice solid foundation. And number 5 is you've got to make sure there's a whiffum factor, a what's in it for me. There's got to be something in it. The Red Hat model, they had status within the programming community. Part of my code is in the Linux operating system. For us, we gave them financial involvement. All right, you don't have to do that, but we did. We chose to. You give them financial involvement. We gave them an emotional involvement, emotional attachment to the product. That's what's in it for them. I don't want to leave. I want to tell everyone about it. I want to be the first there. So that's the first steps to it. There's essentially 4 steps to integration. The first one is you've got to prepare to be hijacked. I'm not talking 9/11 style where they crash it into the ground. I'm talking, you give them the keys. You say, here's the blueprint. Here's what we're going to do with our business, we think. We'll implement anything that you want. Right? You guys drive. That's a hard thing to do, let that control go. But that's what a lot of these organisations, Cellar Band, Crowd Spirit, My Football Team, etc., etc. That's what they're doing. It's up to you. You know better than us. You've got to implement ideas quickly. We made this fatal mistake on a number of occasions. When people actually made a choice, it took us so long to do it. For example, one of them was pricing. They said, it needs to be around the $30, $35 mark, which is Australian dollars, which is about £5, the current exchange rate. And we just couldn't get to that price point. And we worked for nearly 18 months to get to the price point and went back and said, we can't do it. And we pissed a lot of people off. So you've got to implement things very, very quickly. Engage your distribution. Make sure with service industry, easy, right? The distribution points are the people. But with tangible products, you've got to make sure you can get it out there as soon as people order. Again, we made that mistake. We didn't have our distribution line set up. And the fourth one is you're going to have built in a must-have value around the service or the product. Now, what do I mean by that? Red Hat, for example, with the software, you get it for free. But what keeps the people coming back and using it? Right? Why can't they go and do it themselves? Well, Red Hat add a lot of value around that. You get a lot of applications with it. You get a lot of training. You get a lot of service. And it makes people come out. There's a recurring factor in there. With us, with our beer labels, you can go on now and design your beer label online if you want a beer label. Okay? There's nothing to stop you from hitting print screen, cutting it out in Photoshop or Paint, Microsoft Paint, hitting print, cutting it out yourself and sticking on a carton of beer or on a bottle of beer. Some people do that, right? But what we've done is we've taken out all the pain of doing that because they find out when they print it out on their inkjet printer that the resolution's not there and the paper runs when they put it in the water and then they've got to scratch the labels off the beer to put their own one. It's just all too hard. So we say, listen, we will give you the tools to do it, but we'll also provide the back end so that you keep coming back and using us. All right? So you've got to build this recurring model around the business. So who's doing it and what's the future? And is it just the beer thing? Well, it's not. In fact, I think you'll find over the coming years, some of these companies here are going to be fairly large and big to deal with, I'd imagine. I don't know, some of you may have heard of them, some of you may not have. Zopa and Prosper and Lending Club. It's banking and finance, right? It's open business in banking and finance. Peer-to-peer lending. You've got lenders, right, who want a bit of an increase in their return, matched with people who can't get a bank loan, can't get a personal loan, or don't want to go through the rigmarole. These sites here match them up. Okay, there's a lot of stuff involved in doing that, but I know, for instance, Zopa has done something like, I may be wrong, $80 million in loans since it's been around, which is a lot. Prosper's a similar thing in the US, but Lending Club's interesting because they didn't go out. This is a very interesting model, if it works, because they're not building their own community. What they're doing is they're hooking into Facebook, which are already social networks that are set up, and they're targeting, I suppose, those networks already there rather than trying to build their own. Very smart. Very smart. And I think I'd like to see how they go. They're a long way behind the other two at the moment, but they've only just started up. So that's peer-to-peer lending. Real estate is exactly the same kind of thing. Peer-to-peer real estate, it's people with houses to sell, and people want to buy houses, right? This thing's starting to take off as well now in the US. Seller Band. I know that the guys were here. I don't know whether they've been on or they're not, but this is phenomenal. Traditionally, the music, it's very hard to get published in the music caper. Right? Get published. I don't know, you call it published? Very hard to get a record on air. And what they're saying is, look, let's put these bands out there. You guys do a little demo, and the whole idea is that if you can raise $50,000 through $10 increments, right? So people invest $10 in you, and if it gets to $50,000, we'll cut a record. We'll do all the stuff, the marketing around it to try and get it airplay. And I don't know how many bands that they've actually succeeded in doing that with at the moment, but I know there's quite a few. Okay? And they're opportunities that those bands would never have had. The My Football team is an interesting one as well. It's essentially the concept that we were working on with the beer and the Cellar Band. I don't know if you've heard of it, but these guys here, at the beginning of the year I think it started, they said, look, we are jack of the business owners and the managers of the football teams, the soccer teams in the UK, ruining our entertainment. Right? We know how to coach a team, and we know they should be making replacements at certain times and things. They're doing it all wrong. How do we go about owning our own team? So they said, if we can raise £35 from 50,000 people, we'll have enough money to buy a football team. And I don't know the time period. I think it was only about 4 or 5 months. May have been less, may have been a little bit more, but it was around that time frame that they sold the whole thing up. They've now got something like £15 million to buy a football team. And they're looking at buying Leeds. Nottingham Forest are on the list. Okay, it's huge. It remains to be seen how they do that, but you can imagine the profits in that. They've got the profits from trading the players, the profits from sponsorship, profits from selling the team in the future. I mean, it's huge. The potential. And that can be really done with anything. So it's, people say, yeah, but you did it with beer, and, beer's easy. It's not. It can be done with anything, really. So I believe that's part of where the future is. It's not going to be the whole future, but it's certainly going to impact us to some level. In conclusion, I never write a lot on slides, but I'll leave that here. When you use the participation of people and the wisdom of the crowds, you get a lot of donkeys, you get a lot of muppets, you get a lot of idiots, but you also get a lot of smart people in there. And you've got to have to deal with that. And there's a lot of people out there saying it's not going to go anywhere, and it is, and they're wrong. And the machinations of this revolution are certainly, we're feeling the effects of it now. And there's companies out there that are making a big fist of this. And believe me, amateur hour, it's here, and I think it's probably here to stay. So, thank you very much. I hope that was informative. Nothing.
Hi.
I have
one question. Yeah, and on the lights. Just one question that came up to me when you actually had everything decided, even the price, by your you call them members? How do you call those people? Customers, clients, buddies, pals?
No, I don't know what we call them now. We did call them. We just called them members. I mean, it was hard. We didn't want to patronise them at all, so we just said, look, you're just members, but they're members.
But wasn't it then possible for like a competitor to just see everything that went on and then come up with exactly the same beer at a lower price point?
Absolutely.
To screw you out of the market?
Absolutely. But guess what? No one did. Our theory behind it was, at the time, the big breweries will not do it because it's not part of their business model. They're stuck into, they're like this big ocean liner, right? If they want to change tact and change, they can't just turn around and do it. It takes them miles, right? So we figured they're not going to do that. Because we'd spoken to them before, and we wanted them to brew our stuff. We said, just give us some clean skin beer and we'll label it. They went, no.
Yeah.
We get requests for this all the time. And we don't do it. So they now flick business to us. Conversely, other companies out there, startups, smaller breweries, yes, we were worried about them. The reason they didn't work is two things. If they were already a brewery, a smaller boutique brewery, their thing was we knew what their price points were, and it cost them a lot to produce. Our thing was we didn't want to own the brewery. We would contract. Okay, we would get excess capacity from other breweries, and we'd buy it cheap.
That was my next question.
So we could hit that price point. So we knew we couldn't get outpriced from that perspective, and we also knew we could get good quality beer. The problem with a lot of these boutique breweries is the quality is not always there. So that's for a current brewery, a little one. But a new startup could do it, yes. You've got to build the barriers to entry for them, though. For us, there's liquor licenses to deal with. There's all sorts of rings you've got to go through. There's police checks. It's tough. And so we figured by the time someone got through that process of doing it...
You were ahead?
We were ahead.
And the big ones wouldn't do it. So that's why... Is there another reason why you picked beer, or... just because you're Australian, it's kind of the first thing...
Because I'm Australian, yeah.
Was that or a barbecue?
Barbecue, yes.
Any questions from the audience for Liam? It's really tough for me to look in and actually see anybody. You're up higher, mate. Do you see something? No? No questions? Fair enough. Good. All right. Well,
there is one. The first question I usually get is, can I have some beer, please?
Yeah, that's in Australia. Yeah.
My question is, if I would have one share of your company in 2002, how much money would I have made now?
If you had one share? Well, you would have made 100% profit because the share cost you nothing, but the shares are now at 55 cents. The shares are, so you would have made 55 cents.
From what did you have to do to get the share? Was it again just buy the beer?
All you had to do was vote. But see, you wouldn't have had one. You would have had maybe 10.
550.
Right?
That would be how many beers?
You'd have made 550. So yeah, but it's more than any other brewery was doing at the time. And as I recall, Yahoo did a similar thing. I may be wrong, but they gave away shares, and I figured, hey, they went to
they did good.
They did well. But we're still early days for us.
All right.
But it was something that no one else was doing.
Thank you very much, Liam Mulhall, Brewtopia. Thank you.